Thank you for joining me today. This is Patrick Halstead at Qdabra, and we've got our weekly webinar. It's May 24th. This week we are talking about how Visio can be used to create a dashboard on top of your list forms, your business processes, to visualize the health of your process. Goals. Once again, just to recap, we're trying to give you these webinars every week, show you something that is relevant, techniques you can use to get through a wall you might be experiencing. We're trying to do it in a timely way, less than 20 minutes. We're doing real demos, and at the end we will provide information so that you can download the content. Today's agenda, we're going to talk about Visio. Yes, it works. It's pretty cool. There are a few gotchas. We'll go over those. I've also got some extra forms for you. Some typically frequently asked questions that come up in the forum, and I've got 3 samples I'm going to show you today. So first off, Visio. Here you see in my presentation a Visio diagram, an image of a Visio diagram that shows you the sales pipeline process. This is a stock out-of-box sample that you get with Visio. And you can see here that we have 7 different stages. Someone contacts us, they want to buy a product. We contact them, we investigate them, ask them what the requirements are, make sure that it's a good fit, and then we work on developing the sale. Eventually we hope to close that. Sometimes sales are lost, sometimes they're closed. And so here this very simple diagram shows you real time all these different values that we have coming from a SharePoint list, where we have 42 different leads. Let's take a quick look at that. First I'm going to show you the Visio diagram. Here's Visio. And this is the same exact diagram that you just saw. We put this together. I can click on these individual shapes and show you the data that's mapped to them. In this case, what we're doing is we're linking the data with the SharePoint list. You can see down below here, we've set up to link to our Office 365 list. And Jim Cantwell helped me prepare the demo yesterday, so you can see his name here. The data that is displayed where you see these revenue change, and customer lines. And the data is coming from a SharePoint list. So let's take a look at that in 365. Here's our 365 site. Same Visio diagram, once again displaying in the browser. I can click on a stage and it will refresh the list down below. It gives me kind of a master detail. It shows me only those items that map to that stage, in this case developing. If I click on qualifying, we'll see the leads that we're qualifying. Well, we get 6 of them. And you can see that there are 55 customers. I'm not sure what that data means, but you can see that the revenue change. And the total of this column is what you see there on top with the 63,387. That's the total of this column. So the Visio diagram is actually totaling the column, and it's showing information from the list on the diagram. It's kind of like a mashup. Okay. Now I can go further. I can click on these items and I can say, well, I want to change one of these. I want to change this first one here. This is this list here. We have a sales pipeline list. We just have a stock InfoPath list form we're using to edit it. So I'm going to change this from 9,864. I'm just going to make it 19,000. And so you can see that when I submit it, it does not update the list. It does not update the data in Visio right away. It's still 63,387. And that's the first gotcha. So we have, I'll show you this in a second, but the out-of-box Visio experience, as you can see here, we need to do more to optimize our page. But the out-of-box Visio experience has a default, and it waits 5 minutes before it updates the data, which is a bit silly. You can change that, and I'll show you a technique on a slide to do that. We have not changed that. We're just showing you out-of-box. And so that's what you'll see if you don't change that setting. You'll just wait 5 minutes. It's not that big a deal. A lot of times you don't really care if this dashboard updates every single 30 seconds. But for the demo, it's a bit painful when it doesn't refresh. But it's a really nice technique here. Let me just go through this one more time in the presentation here. So we're going to see here in a minute or two of that value change. I'll go back to it and show you that we really did go from 63,000 to 73,000. But first, let's talk about the benefit here. So we've got a mashup in SharePoint using Visio. We've published the Visio diagram out. We're using it to link to our data, in this case, sales pipeline. When we click on a stage in that Visio diagram, it's filtering this sales pipeline list down, which is really nice because it shows me, hey, here are my 6 qualifying leads. This is what I need to focus on today, qualifying leads. I can edit the leads, I can call them up, and I can, whatever, try to make the sale, change their status they're in, change it from qualifying to something else, and the data will be updated. Okay. So here you see an example that I'll show you in a second here. It won't be 72, it'll be 73 because we updated by 10,000. But in the deck that I send you later, you'll have this example to look at. So there's definitely a value proposition here. You can use Visio obviously Visio is a great Office product. It's included in Office Professional, and I think so. Not sure, but anyway, Visio is something that you can use to diagram your business process. You can create flowcharts. Those flowcharts can map to a real live business process. You can publish those Visio diagrams to SharePoint and use them as dashboards. You can overlay the data from your lists onto the diagram and show in real time, well, semi-real time, that evolving process, right? So you can see the health. With just one glance, you can take a look at your process, and you can see kind of all the things that need to be looked at. Now, obviously, we showed you a very simple example. You could make it even better. You could change the color of the different states if they're not meeting criteria. You can have SLA metrics that you're measuring to make sure that your support process is moving along quickly enough. Lots of opportunities here. There are a couple of gotchas. One of them is that default caching, and of course there's a way to fix it. You have to go into central admin, but you can fix it. The other gotchas are that you need to use a summary list to aggregate the data in that sales pipeline. So let's just go back to the Visio here. Notice it still has not updated, even if I click refresh. It still is that 63,000 number, but soon it will refresh, trust me. What I want to do quickly though is go back and show you, I'm just going to go up to the site here, test site, Jim's test site. And we have a bunch of lists here. We've got our sales pipeline. This is our 42 different items here that constitute the sales diagram. You see all this data is going into that. And we've also got this sales pipeline summary. We've got exactly 7 rows in here. This is the aggregate. And this is kind of a gotcha because in Visio, you can connect your diagram shapes to a data feed, a data list, a SharePoint list. But you can't connect it to a filtered SharePoint list. And what that means is that you need this intermediary aggregate step to aggregate the values into this summary sales chart. And then what you'll do is you will tie or bind your Visio shapes to this list, not the sales pipeline. So you're still, when you click on a stage, you're still going to go to the sales pipeline and filter that. But when you update a value, it will get updated to the summary list, and then Visio will use that to show the data on the diagram. So it's just one extra step. It's not too bad, but the question is, how do you get the data from the sales pipeline edits into the sales pipeline summary? And there's a couple of things you can do. You can use a simple workflow to do that. We have a generic workflow that we've built to do that, and if you're interested in that, send us your contact information, and we are probably going to at some point maybe even make it available for a small donation. But if you contact us in the next week or so, we'll give it to you for free. Let's go back to the site. Let's see if it refreshed. Okay, and there we go. So finally, that qualifying has jumped from 63,000 to 73,000. You see that right there. And we're happy. Okay, so that kind of goes over the summaries there of the value proposition. And we've got some extras for you. Frequently asked questions. A lot of times you want to hide an approval section if the person's not in the list of approvers. How do you do it? Well, we've got a sample for you. And the sample is got a nice explanation in it. And you can read that. I'm just going to skip it. Basically, what we've got here is we've got two lists, colors and cars. Colors is coming from SharePoint. We're pulling data in from our SharePoint list. We want to check to see if a value in our form, in this case color, I need to be VPN'd in to do this. That's good. I am. We're going to be checking to see if a value in the form is in the list. Now, in your case, if you're using the approvers and the username or whatever, you're going to basically go off and you're going to check. You're going to get the user's name using the user profile service. We've got a link here. You can just configure that for your form. Or you can use our Active Directory web service. Both techniques are good. You'll get the user's name, and then you'll have probably a SharePoint list with the list of approvers in it, their aliases. Now what you're going to do is you're going to check, is the current username that's in this field in the list that came from SharePoint? And here we're using colors, but you can imagine replacing this with a list of approvers. We type in a color, we click outside the box, nothing happens. Well, that's because magenta isn't in the list. But if we type in a value that is in the list, it conditionally formats it as green. Same below, we have cars, a list of cars. This list is not from SharePoint. This list is coming in from an external XML data source. If I type in my Rover, my Range Rover, whatever, nothing. But if I type in a Jaguar, we get green. So let's see, how did we do this? Well, you can go down the bottom of the form, and assuming you can see it, why can't it just do the right thing here for me? I want to move it. And maximize it. Okay. Now at the bottom of this sample form, we've got a button that you can click on, and we give you a very simple step-by-step little 10-stepper that you can go through to do it. I can also show you this. Basically, what you're going to do is once you connect to that data connection, you're going to select the field in your form that you want to set the conditional formatting on. In your case, it's probably going to be a section. And then what you do is you add a rule. You add a condition. The condition is the key thing. So the condition here says, if any occurrence of color is equal to color, then color it green. Show it in green. Highlight it in green. Well, how do we do that? This any occurrence doesn't show up by default in this list. It's just there because I already had it there. So let's remove it. Let me just show you that for a second here. I'm just going to remove this. Now I'm going to click on my conditions. Notice that I don't have that any occurrence. How did I get that? Okay. Let's click on select a field or group. You're going to select your secondary data source, in this case colors. We're going to drill down to find the item. And before we click OK, this is the key step, you want to change this select here to any occurrence of title. Now, title is confusing. Why is it saying title? Well, this is just InfoPath being a bit harebrained. I was going to say InfoPath is having a hairball. But it will replace title with color. It just doesn't know what you've selected in the dropdown. So they use title as a placeholder, which is confusing. Once we click it, though, you'll see that it replaces that with color. And we can select now from the main data source, we're going to select color. And there we have it. That's our form. That works fine. If I go back into the condition, I can see what this looks like in the XML path language. This is the macro language for InfoPath. By clicking on the expression, that's just going to show me the same exact condition, but it's going to show it to me in an XML path format. So for those of you who are really into XPath, and I encourage you to learn more about XPath. It is the macro language for InfoPath. It's wonderfully powerful. You can use it for all kinds of things. We'll see another example in the next extra I show you. I encourage you to take that little trick. Basically just change the expression, change the drop-down to the expression. You can see what it looks like behind the scenes. Okay, so that's how we did that. That's the first example. And it's the same technique for the secondary list that we pull in from our XML file. You could also use this technique with SQL. No big deal. Same thing. Okay, so let's take a look at the second extra. We've got a multiple select checkbox. Well, that's a new feature in 2010. Love it, right? But what happens if you've got a cascading dropdown? Well, you go in. Let's just take a look. So we have it here, I believe. No, this is the wrong one. Here's our sample. Not as pretty as the previous. We're going to switch to this view and preview it. Okay, so here we have pulling once again from SharePoint. We're pulling from our Northwind database. We have a Northwind database sample deployed to SharePoint. We showed you this last week as part of the list webinar, showing you how to edit multiple lists. So we've got beverages and whatnot in here, and it pulls down all the different products for that category. Now, here's my multiple checkbox. I love this control. This is just completely out of the box. I just drag and drop this guy in and configure it. So I select my products, and now what I want to do? Well, I actually want to change. I didn't want confections. I want dairy products. What happens? It still remembers those 3 products from the previous category, which is not very nice because they're IDs now. They're like 48, 49, and 25. They mean nothing to me. Terrible UI. And this is just out of the box. Like, well, how can I refresh it? How can I reduce it? How can I remove it? So here's an example. Same example. We'll just go through here again. Select 3 items. Change it to dairy products. Okay, it didn't work. So I need to check to make sure that I did this correctly. So this is the form, and this is just a common, if you look at the controls section on top here, we've got this thing called multiple selection. I've just taken this and dropped it into the form, and then I've right-clicked it, and I've bound it to this secondary data source. This is my SharePoint site, my products. I've got a data connection to that. Look in the Data Connections tab. You can see I've got 2 data connections, one to products and one to categories. They're just both pulling list data in from the SharePoint site. And so it's very easy to set these up. Now, when you change the category, we have a rule that's supposed to fire, and it's going to be deleting those previous entries. And this rule, for whatever reason, is not working, and that's because I've got a typo right there. Instead of products, it's products. You just have to make sure that this path here in your delete rule, and we're just setting this command in Q rules to equal delete, and we're just going to do that. We're going to make sure it's spelled correctly. You can try it again. Okay, so once again, we've got our confections. and I got 4 now. I'm going to go back to meat and poultry. Notice that those 4 items are deleted. We can quickly change these around, and it's not retaining the previous children when we do that. So that's a nice technique. Sometimes you want to retain those previous values, but a lot of times you don't, because it doesn't make sense because you have a cascading drop-down scenario just like this. So you can use Q rules to delete those previous values. Very easy to do if you already have Q rules. If you don't have Q rules, we have a free trial you can download. You can try that out. You can use the sample. You don't even need to download Q rules. We have injected this sample with Q rules, so you can take a look at it if you send us your contact information. So that's the second sample. Third sample is the Blinkum sample. This is very common. You have a form and you want to reset all the fields, clear all the values. And this is typical when you want to submit a form. You want to click a button to submit. You want to submit it, but you don't want to close it. You just want to reset all the values so they can submit it again, right? So here we've got a very stupidly simple form, and we can actually go in, type in some data, some just junk data. I'm just typing on my keyboard, as you can see. I've got blue highlights here for attributes. I've got my data source has some fields, has some attributes, but I can blank them all. How do I do that? Well, you can see here, here's my data source. I've got those 2 attributes that are in blue, and I've got 6 fields. The button has a command. This is completely out of the box. You don't need Q rules for this. And the button has a rule on it, and the rule is setting the value equal to blank, nothing. Look at the value. Wow, that's like, how did I get that in there? Right, that's the key thing here. So let's do this. I'm going to what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I did that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend for a second here that I have another action. I'm going to add another action here to the form to set a value. And this time, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to just set any value in your form. This is just a placeholder, field 6. Even though we want to set all the values to be blank, we have to start off somewhere. So we're going to set field 6 equal to blank. Just leave that value as blank. We're done. Now we got 2 actions. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to save the form. You save your form out as source files. Now many of you don't know how to do this yet because this is a new technique. But if you go to Publish underneath File, there's an Export Source Files option. And what that does is it allows you to extract all of the the files in your InfoPath template package. You know, the XSN file is just a package. It includes a bunch of different things in it, and this allows you to extract them. So we'll do that, and we're going to close the designer here, and I'm going to show you that extracted directory here. So I've got a folder called Blinkum3, and these are the files that make up that XSN package. When I use the export option, it extracts them into this folder. You can see here I've got a manifest file, I've got my data source schema, I've got sample data, I've got a bunch of other things. Here's my view information. This is all stuff that you can look at on your own. It's advanced, but you can go in here and you can edit this stuff. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go into the manifest and you're going to actually edit the manifest in Notepad, heaven forbid. And you know, don't let this completely throw you for a loop here. If you scroll down to the bottom, so we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a section where the rules are. And it starts, you can just search for rule sets as well. There's the rules in the form. Very simple form. It just has 1 rule, 2 actions, and you can see here that there's that action with field 6 I just added. So what you're going to do is you're going to replace that field 6 with this really complicated XPath. Once again, here's XPath coming up, wonderful macro language. And we're going to delete the first action. Okay, so I took that value and I replaced field 6 with this value. And make sure that you don't delete the double quotes around it. You know, target field, we're going to set that equal to this. And now we're going to save it. Just save the form out. And then, in order to open this up in the Designer, you have to right-click the manifest and choose Design. You have to have InfoPath Designer installed, of course. Okay, now you can preview it. And if we look at the Designer, you'll see that the rule, we just have that one action. And that action is this really complicated XPath. InfoPath tries to parse that string that you saw into a more readable format, but it's pretty Greek to me, you know, and I'm sure it is to you too. You don't have to worry about that because we've given you that sample there, and that will set all the values in your form into a blank. Okay, so that's pretty much it for my samples today. Once again, I am going to be sending you these. All you have to do is go to our website, Qdabra.com, go to the Contact Us page. There's a little form on there you can fill out. Give me some quick feedback on this video. How was the audio? Did you learn anything? Are you happy to see these weekly webinars? What can we do different? And then we'll send you the samples. And I've got, today I've got the samples I'm going to send you are the Visio diagram that you saw for the pipeline. We'll send you the presentation. And we'll send you these 3 samples that we demoed to you. And I've actually got 2 versions of this third one that blanks all the fields and one that blanks all the fields and the attributes. So we'll send you all those, and I hope you have a wonderful day. It's been my pleasure to present to you. We are doing a webinar next week, and let me just share that with you real quick. We are doing, next week, we're doing surveys. Talk about, this is part 1. We have a 3-part series coming for you on surveys. We're going to show you 3 kinds of survey forms. A survey form that works with email, no SharePoint needed, and you don't even need to have a site. You just send them in survey and email, and you get the survey results back in Outlook, and you can see the results. Part 2 is going to be survey forms on SharePoint using multiple lists. That'll be the following week. And then part 3, we'll show you survey forms using a database. Next week, we're going to be using Link as our client for the online meeting. We've had a bunch of problems with live meeting in the last month. Microsoft is decommissioning live meeting, so we're going to try to move to Link next week. I'm recording this in Link because we had problems during the webinar. So hopefully the audio was okay. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to talking to you again next week.